What if you had an operating system for reality itself? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're looking at the ideas of Aristotle, not as some dusty old philosopher, but as the creator of a powerful blueprint for making sense of, well, everything.
So, let's kick things off with a huge question. It's a question that obsessed the ancient Greeks, and honestly, it still feels incredibly relevant. In a world that's always changing, always in motion, how do we find something solid, something true? On this, you had two of the greatest minds in history, with two totally different takes. First, you have Plato, who said real truth isn't here in our messy world. It's out there in a perfect, ideal realm of forms. But his star student, Aristotle, he looked around and said, nope, truth isn't out there. It's right here, baked into the very fabric of the world we see and touch. See, Aristotle didn't want to escape reality. He wanted to understand it from the inside out. He decided to build a complete intellectual blueprint, a system for understanding. You could almost call it an architecture of knowing. His grand project, really, was to heal this fracture he saw. On one hand, you have physis, the physical, changing, sometimes chaotic stuff of the world. On the other, you have logos, the world of reason, pattern, and structure. Aristotle's big bet was that these aren't two separate things. They're two sides of the very same coin. All right, so let's get into the blueprint itself. And like any good architect, Aristotle started with the foundation. He asked a simple but profound question. What makes something real? And his answer is this idea with a fancy name, hylomorphism. Don't let the word scare you. The concept is beautiful. It just means that everything you see is a blend of two ingredients. It's matter, the raw stuff it's made of, and its form, the structure or pattern that makes it what it is. And here is the absolute key. For Aristotle, matter is just pure potential. It's the could-be. Form is what makes it an actual thing. It's the is. The form is the organizing principle that turns a lump of potential into a specific reality. This is a perfect way to see it in action. A block of marble? That's just potentiality. It could be a million things. The artist's idea for a sculpture? That's the form. And when the artist imposes that form onto the matter, you get the finished sculpture. Actuality. That journey from potential to actual is happening everywhere, all the time. Okay, so that's the foundation, what reality is. Now let's look at the framework he built on top of it. How do our minds actually grasp this structured reality? You see, for Aristotle, logic wasn't just a clever party trick to win arguments. It was way bigger than that. He believed that the rules of logic in our minds actually mirror the structure of reality itself. It's like our brains come factory installed with the right software to understand the universe. And his primary tool for this was the syllogism. You've definitely heard the classic, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. It's like a little logic machine that lets you connect a specific thing, one guy named Socrates, to a big universal truth.
But knowing that something is true isn't the same as understanding why it's true. The syllogism tells us Socrates is mortal, for sure, but it doesn't give us the full story. For that, Aristotle needed an even more powerful tool.
And that tool is his incredible concept of the four causes. He said that to really truly understand anything, you have to ask 4 different why questions about it. Let's try it with a self-driving car. First, the material cause. What's it made of? Steel, silicon, plastic. Easy. Second, the formal cause. What's its design? The software, the blueprints. Third, the efficient cause. Who or what actually built it? The robots in the factory, the engineers. And last, and for Aristotle this was the most important one, the final cause. What is its purpose? Its telos. Well, it's to get people from A to B safely.
And that idea of a final cause, of a purpose, leads us to the very top of Aristotle's entire system. If everything has a purpose, then what is the purpose of being human? Aristotle's answer is a beautiful Greek word, eudaimonia. Now this often gets translated as happiness, but that doesn't even come close. It's more like human flourishing. It's about fully realizing our potential, about living at the absolute peak of our capabilities as thinking, rational beings.
So how do we get there? Well, Aristotle gives us a practical guide. We achieve this flourishing by practicing virtue, which he saw as the perfect middle ground between two extremes. So courage isn't the opposite of cowardice, it's the sweet spot between being a coward and being reckless. And this isn't something you just read about. You have to practice it. Build it like a muscle, using your practical wisdom to figure out the right thing to do in a messy, real-world community. Because for him, we're political animals. We can't flourish alone.
And this idea of a built-in purpose, this telos, he didn't just see it in humans. He saw it everywhere. He believed nature is incredibly efficient. An acorn's purpose is to become an oak. A bird's wings have the purpose of flight. For Aristotle, the entire universe is humming with purpose.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but you might be thinking, what does a philosopher from 2,300 years ago have to say to us now? Well, it turns out his blueprint is shockingly relevant to our most cutting-edge technology. Just think about artificial intelligence. All the massive amounts of raw data we pour into these systems, that's Aristotle's matter, pure, unformed potential. And the algorithm, the code we write to organize that data and give it a job, that's the form. It is a perfect digital echo of hylomorphism.
And this brings us right back around to that crucial fourth cause, the final cause, the question of purpose. For centuries, modern science kind of ignored this one. It got really good at explaining the how, but often shied away from asking why.
But guess what? That ancient Aristotelian question is now staring us right in the face. It has a new name, the AI alignment problem. As we build these incredibly powerful minds, we are forced to ask, what is its purpose? What is its telos? What should we tell it to do? That is an Aristotelian question, through and through.
So in the end, Aristotle gives us something much more valuable than just a list of theories. He gives us a stance, a way of looking at the world. He gives us a toolkit to find the pattern in the noise, the order in the chaos, and the purpose hidden deep inside complexity.
And that leaves us with a huge question for our own time. In an age that so often feels chaotic, fragmented, and just overflowing with meaningless information, maybe, just maybe, it's time to dust off this ancient blueprint and start building with it again.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up the source material on a philosopher whose work isn't just history. It is, well, really the foundational blueprint for the systematic organization of knowledge itself, Aristotle. Our mission today is to rapidly internalize his complete architecture of knowing how his ancient concepts, like form, purpose, virtue, how they unify seemingly diverse fields.
And critically, why the system is popping up again, why it's so relevant to some really complex modern debates, especially in AI, complexity theory, systems engineering.
Exactly. Let's unpack this profoundly influential body of work.
What's essential to grasp immediately, I think, is that we often pigeonhole Aristotle. Just the logic guy or the early biologist.
Right, put him in a box.
Yeah, but the sources show him as more of a threshold figure. He's really the architect of rational modernity, mainly because he deliberately broke with his teacher, Plato.
That's a key point. Plato looked up, right? Trying to escape the messy, changeable world to get to these perfect, unchanging forms.
Exactly. Aristotle, though, decided the truth was in the material world. He wanted to understand the world of flux, but understand it from within, not escape it.
So that decision, staying grounded, it puts him right between those two huge philosophical poles he inherited.
It really does.
On one side, you've got physis, the changeable world of matter, motion, Heraclitus's river, everything flowing.
Constantly changing, yeah.
And on the other, you have logos, this idea of eternal rational structure. Like Parmenides saying, change is just an illusion because true being has to be static.
And that split must have just paralyzed intellectual progress, right? How do you reconcile those?
It seems like it would. Plato tried, didn't he? By splitting reality in two, the physical and the ideal.
He did, but Aristotle's breakthrough was radical precisely because he tried to heal that Platonic fracture. His philosophy was about immanence, finding the answers here.
Integrating identity and transformation, making them work together in one system.
Yes, a single coherent system that could actually account for things being stable and changing at the same time, which is, what we experience.
And the mechanism, the core concept we really need to get our heads around here is hylomorphism. Sounds a bit academic, maybe.
It does, but it's the absolute key. It's the unifying concept for his whole system. Hylomorphism, the theory that every single substance, every existing thing is a composite.
Okay, a composite of two principles.
Right. Matter, hyle, and form. Eidos. The form is the structure, the blueprint, the essence, the thing that makes it that specific thing.
And the matter.
The matter is just the potential stuff it's made of, that out of which, as he put it.
Okay, so give us the classic example, the statue.
Right, you have a bronze statue. The bronze itself, that's the matter. The specific shape, say, of Hermes, that's the form.
Simple enough for an object, but what about living things? That's where it gets interesting.
That's where the power of the concept really hits, yeah. Take an oak tree. The wood, the cellulose, the water, that's all the matter. But the form is the organizing principle. It dictates the branch structure, the leaf shape, the inherent capacity to grow, to reproduce. Crucially, the form actualizes the potential that's just sitting there in the matter.
So the form is like the identity card. Defines what it is, what it does.
Exactly. Its intelligibility, its function, it all comes from the form.
And the reason we're diving so deep into this, beyond just history, it's because this ancient framework is being actively revived now.
It's unavoidable, really. The sources are saying this framework is having a kind of renaissance. You see it in complexity theory, in foundational debates, in maths, systems engineering.
And AI alignment, you mentioned.
Especially AI alignment, yes. I mean, if you're trying to design a system that behaves predictably, ethically, with some kind of purpose, you're basically asking Aristotle's questions about its form and its telos, its purpose.
We need the vocabulary he developed.
We absolutely do. To talk about systemic structure and purpose in a meaningful way.
Okay, so let's ground these somewhat abstract ideas in the place where they were first really put into action. The Lyceum. Founded around 335 BCE, you, the listener, should picture this not just as a lecture hall.
Oh, definitely not. It was much more than that. Think of it as a vast collaborative research engine, a radical innovation at the time.
How did it differ from Plato's Academy?
Well, the Academy was more about speculative discourse, right? Dialectic, trying to ascend towards those non-physical forms. The Lyceum was profoundly terrestrial, empirical.
Focused on the world around them.
Very much so. The sources call it a dynamic epistemological engine. It was like the prototype of a research university, combining a field station, an archive, a think tank, all focused on classifying and understanding the actual world.
That sounds like an enormous scope. What kind of research were they actually doing?
The scope is often underestimated, yeah. They weren't just reading scrolls, they were generating new data. The curriculum included detailed anatomical dissections.
Really? Like medical studies?
Yes, an exhaustive cataloging of marine species, which tells us just how hands-on Aristotle himself was. And they did statistical studies, compiling and analyzing the constitutions of, 158 Greek city-states.
Wow. To understand practical politics.
Exactly. And the thread tying all this disparate work together was one systematic method. The relentless search for Archiver's principles and atia causes within each specific field.
So everything, whether it's a fish or a political system, has to be explainable through its causes. Which brings us straight to the famous 4 causes. How do they use this as a practical tool?
It was a heuristic, yeah. A practical layered explanation designed specifically to resist reductionism, the idea that you can explain something complex with just one factor.
So it forces a more complete understanding.
Right. They function as these comprehensive explanatory questions you could apply to anything. First, the material cause, haidos. What's it made of? Bronze for the statue, tissue for the heart.
Okay.
Second, the formal cause, eidosos. What's its structure? Its essence. The blueprint of the statue, the anatomical setup of the heart.
Got it.
Third, the efficient cause. What brought it into being? The sculpture, or maybe the biological processes that initiated growth. The maker, or mover.
Right.
And fourth, and often most important for Aristotle, the final cause. Telos. What's its purpose? Its end? Why does it exist? To honor a god, or for the heart to circulate blood.
I like that layered approach. It means just knowing who made it, the efficient cause, or what it's made of, the material.
Yeah.
That's not enough. You don't really know it without grasping the purpose, the telos.
Precisely. Knowledge is incomplete otherwise. The Lyceum basically operated as a, let's call it a teleological observatory. Knowledge was always referred back to intelligible structure and purpose.
And this commitment was even reflected in how they taught, the walking lectures.
Yeah, the peripatetic school. The name comes from peripatine, to walk around. The idea was that form and purpose emerge organically through structured, active engagement with reality. You're literally moving through the world while thinking about it.
The teaching method itself mirrors the philosophy.
Exactly. The philosopher's soul, like the school itself, was in motion, moving towards understanding, towards fulfillment.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's shift from the physical space, the Lyceum, to the formal structure that underpinned all this empirical work. His logic. The collection known as the Organon. This wasn't just a tool for winning arguments, was it?
No. The source material is very clear on this. For Aristotle, Logic isn't arbitrary. It's grounded in ontological realism. It reflects the very structure of reality.
Because the world itself is intelligible.
Right. So our method of reasoning about it must mirror that intelligibility. And at the core of the organon, you find the syllogism.
The classic deductive reasoning structure. Conclusion follows from two premises. We all learn the Socrates is mortal example.
All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal.
Yes. So what's the fundamental relationship he's revealing there?
He's showing the essential connection between the universal and the particular. The conclusion works because you mediate between the two premises using that crucial middle term.
Man, in that case.
Exactly. Man is the conceptual hook. It links the general category immortality to the specific instance, Socrates. Aristotle believed reality is actually structured this way, with these non-contradictory, meaningful relationships. Logic is the tool that lets our rational minds uncover them.
So logic lets us move from observed facts, the premises, to certain conclusions. And this leads right into his epistemology, his theory of knowledge in the posterior analytics, where he distinguishes real knowledge from just opinion.
That distinction is absolutely crucial for him. Episteme, that scientific knowledge. It means grasping the cause of something and knowing it couldn't be otherwise. It has to be that way.
Which is totally different from doxa opinion.
Right. Doxa is just contingent, maybe observational knowledge. It might be true, but it doesn't have that necessity. The path to episteme is structured. It involves demonstration chains of syllogisms, basically that descend logically from archai.
Those first principles again. Self-evident truths.
Yes, archai. Self-evident first principles.
But wait, if they're self-evident, how do we know them? How are they secured if the whole system rests on them?
That's a great question. They're secured through a process that blends the empirical with the intuitive. He calls the faculty nous, often translated as intuitive intellect.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, you start with empirical observation induction, collecting lots of particular examples. But induction alone, seeing many swans be white, doesn't give you logical necessity. It could be that the next swan is black.
Right.
Nous is the intellectual leap. It's the faculty that grasps the universal principle that embedded within all those particulars you observed. It sees the necessary connection. It's the highest bit of the soul, the bridge from raw sense data to necessary truth.
So nous lets you climb the ladder from observation up to the first principle.
Which then anchors the whole deductive structure going back down through syllogisms. It's a two-way street. Induction feeding intuition, nous, which then grounds deduction, syllogism.
That's brilliant. A combination of bottom-up and top-down. And it also shows how logic connects to language, which he talks about in On Interpretation.
Yes, logic bridges ontology, what exists, and semantics, how we talk about it. For him, the basic structure of a declarative sentence, subject-predicate like, the apple is red. That structure mirrors how a substance, the apple, actually instantiates a form, redness, in the real world. There's a fundamental alignment, he thought, between how we think and talk and how reality itself is structured.
That alignment, that structure, the need for first principles, it sounds incredibly relevant when we start talking about building digital knowledge structures, like AI.
This is exactly where the ancient system becomes startlingly modern. Connecting Aristotle's logic to tech today is all about searching for causal knowledge, not just correlation, but knowing why.
So syllogistic logic isn't just a museum piece.
Not at all. You see its echoes directly in algorithms. Think about inference engines, decision trees, even the basic structure of programming languages. They often rely on similar chains of reasoning.
Can you elaborate on how the middle term shows up in algorithms?
Sure. In machine learning, you could think of the middle term as being analogous to a key feature, or maybe an intermediate variable in a network. It's the thing that links an input, the particular data point, to an output, the generalized conclusion or classification.
Like a hidden layer in a neural network.
Exactly. When a deep learning model successfully classifies an image, say there's an intermediate representation, a pattern in a hidden layer, that functions like that middle term. It makes the connection to the category. And Aristotle's demand for secure archive
For first principles.
that directly anticipates the modern quest for explainable AI, or XAI.
That's a huge field right now, trying to crack open the AI black box.
Precisely. XAI is desperately trying to establish the first principles, the core reasons or axioms governing an AI's decisions. We want to ensure it's not just making correlations we don't understand.
We're asking Aristotle's question. What's the self-evident foundation, the archy, from which this AI is demonstrating its conclusions?
Exactly. If we can't define those archai, we don't have true episteme about the AI's reasoning. We just have effective doxa, it seems to work, but we don't know why for sure. AI safety is, in a very real sense, an attempt to restore Aristotelian causal knowledge to computation.
And we shouldn't forget the ethical dimension. For Aristotle, logic wasn't just useful, it was virtuous.
Absolutely. For him, the disciplined pursuit of truth through rational order, what he called theoria, contemplation is itself the highest virtue of the soul. By using logic rigorously, by aligning our minds with the intelligible structure of the cosmos.
We're fulfilling our natural function as rational beings.
Yes. Logic is like an internal architecture that disciplines the soul, preparing it for both moral and intellectual excellence. It's not just a tool, it's a way of being.
Okay, so we've covered the architecture and the how, the logic. Now we need to dive into the ground of being itself, metaphysics, what Aristotle called inquiry into being as being.
Right. This is where he lays out the ultimate principles that make reality understandable and make change meaningful.
And the central concept here is substance, ousia.
Yes. And to understand substance, we have to loop back to hylomorphism. Remember, every substance is a composite of matter, hyle, and form, eidos.
Matter as the potential stuff, form as the blueprint or structure.
Exactly. Matter is the substratum, the pure potentiality. Form is the principle of determination, identity, function. What makes it this thing?
Let's look deeper at how they interact during change. That seems crucial.
It is. Think about a lump of clay. The clay itself is the matter. It persists even if the form changes.
Okay.
You can shape that clay into a vase that's form A. Then you can squash it and shape it into a plate, form B. The underlying matter, the clay, remains, but the identity, the function, the form of the substance changes.
So by distinguishing the persistent matter from the determining form, he solves that old problem. How things change yet remain the same thing in some sense.
He does. And crucially, without needing Plato's separate world of forms, the potential matter and the actuality form are right here together in the substance itself.
This dynamic between the stuff that can be something and the way it is right now, that brings us to another critical pair. Actuality, energia, and potentiality, dynamis.
This pair is arguably his greatest explanatory achievement. These are the modalities of being. They define the directionality of existence in the world.
How so?
Everything that exists in our changing world is fundamentally a movement, a telic transformation, meaning it's directed towards an end, moving from potency, dynamis, to act, energia.
Give an example.
Okay. A pile of bricks is potentially a house. It has the dynamis to become a house. When the builder arranges them according to the blueprint,
A form?
the house is actualized. It achieves energia. The potential has become actual.
But it's not just about any random possibility, is it? It's about inherent potential.
Absolutely critical distinction. Potentiality is defined and limited by the inherent form. An acorn is potentially an oak tree. It is not potentially a dog.
Right. The potential is specific.
Yes. And when the acorn grows into the oak, the growth itself is the energia, the actuality, the ongoing work or activity of becoming the thing it was always oriented towards becoming. This whole dialectic makes change intelligible. It allows coherent discussion of growth, learning, becoming. Change isn't just random chaos.
Which makes the telos the final cause, the real driver of this whole process.
That's why when you look at the four causes again, especially in natural systems, the final cause often seems primary. They all cooperate, but the end goal often dictates the necessary form and process.
The telos isn't just where it happens to end up.
No, it's the fulfillment of the thing's inherent nature. That's the core of his immanent teleology. Nature is purposeful. The acorn possesses an inner principle of development directing it towards becoming an oak unless something interferes.
And this idea of inherent purpose, of everything moving towards an end, leads him to his ultimate cosmological principle in Metaphysics 12, the unmoved mover. This concept feels really counterintuitive to us now, steeped in, say, Newtonian physics.
It is counterintuitive if you're only thinking in terms of efficient causes, things pushing other things. The unmoved mover, to pratinkinon akinaton, is the necessary logical endpoint of his system. If everything that's moving is moved by something else.
You can't have an infinite chain of movers.
Exactly, there must be a first mover. But, and this is crucial, this first mover can't itself be moved. It can't be physical in the way other things are.
So how does it cause motion? How does it sustain the movement of the entire cosmos if it's not physically pushing anything?
It causes motion by being the ultimate telic attractor. It's pure actuality, energia, perfect, eternal, immaterial. It doesn't push, it pulls.
Pulls how?
By being desired. Aristotle uses the analogy like beauty stirs desire. All the ordered motion in the cosmos, from the celestial spheres down to the striving of living things, is an attempt to imitate the perfection and pure contemplation embodied by the mover.
Okay, so the mover is the ultimate purpose or goal for the whole universe, not the initial mechanic who set it going.
That's the vital distinction. It's the ultimate final cause. It sustains cosmic order by being the perfect state that all potentiality everywhere is striving to actualize, each in its own way. Its legacy is huge, running from Aquinas adapting it for the Christian God, all the way to 20th century process philosophers like Whitehead.
Let's make that explicit connection now. Back to systems engineering, digital architecture. We can map the four causes onto AI, but let's really zero in on the implications of that final cause.
Okay, let's lay the schema over a modern AI system.
Right.
The raw data you train it on, that's the matter.
The potential.
The trained model, the specific code, the logical architecture, that's the form.
The structure.
The developer or the user who initiates the process, runs the program, that's the efficient cause.
The mover.
But the most critical piece, the final cause, the telos, that's the user goal or purpose. The specific outcome you want the system to achieve. Optimize the supply chain, classify medical images, whatever it is.
So in this digital context, the final cause is what gives the whole system its coherence, its direction. If we don't define that telos rigorously,
then the whole architecture, no matter how sophisticated the code, form, or how massive the data, matter, is fundamentally adrift. It leads directly to what we now call the alignment problem.
Because if the final cause is just vaguely defined, like maximize clicks or increase efficiency,
without clear ethical or practical wisdom constraints, the system will actualize its potential in ways we likely won't want. It will find the shortest path to that telos, regardless of side effects. Aristotle's framework also helps us think about complexity.
how so?
When we see complex systems organizing themselves, showing emergent properties without explicit top-down instruction, it resonates strongly with Aristotle's insistence that nature unfolds in an ordered way toward inherent ends. It's not just random collisions. His viewpoint is a powerful antidote to pure reductionism.
Okay, so now let's apply this whole system forms, causes, potentiality, actuality to the highest form of life he studied. Us, human beings, in the Nicomachean Ethics.
Right. The ethics is essentially Aristotle applying his metaphysics and biology to the human sphere. If everything has a telos, a function or purpose, then humans must too.
And our highest end, our ultimate purpose, is eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia, often poorly translated as just happiness. It's much richer than that. It means flourishing, thriving, the life well lived in accordance with reason and virtue. It's the full actualization of our specific human potential.
And he gets there via the function argument, right? The good for anything lies in doing its specific function well.
Exactly. What's unique to humans, our capacity for reason. So the good life, eudaimonia, involves living rationally and living well according to reason. That means living virtuously.
And virtue, or K, excellence, isn't something we're born with.
No, absolutely not. It's acquired through habituation, like learning a craft. You become courageous by repeatedly performing courageous actions. You become just by doing just things. It requires conscious effort, practice over time.
And the structure of these ethical virtues lies in hitting the mesodes, the mean between two extremes.
Yes, the mean. And we need to be really clear, this isn't about mediocrity or compromise.
Right, it's not just splitting the difference.
Not at all. It's hitting the bullseye. It's excellence, perfectly calibrated to the situation, determined by reason and context. Take courage. It's the mean between the deficiency of cowardice and the excess of recklessness.
And what counts as courageous depends entirely on the circumstances.
Precisely. It requires acute, practical judgment. What's courageous for a soldier in battle is different from what's courageous for a politician facing opposition. Finding that mean is demanding. It's context-dependent.
Which brings us to the intellectual virtue needed to find that mean in practice. Phronesis.
Phronesis, practical wisdom, absolutely essential. It's the intellectual virtue that allows you to make the right judgment and take the right action in specific, concrete situations.
How does it differ from, say, theoretical wisdom, Sophia?
Sophia deals with eternal, unchanging truths. Mathematics, metaphysics. Phronesis deals with the messy, changeable world of human affairs. What should I do here and now? It requires experience, emotional intelligence, the ability to read a situation correctly. You could be incredibly smart, theoretically, Sophia, but still make terrible life choices if you lack phronesis.
It's the wisdom of the statesman, the skilled artisan of life. Without it, virtues become vices.
Exactly. Without phronesis, courage becomes rashness, generosity becomes wastefulness. It's the rudder that steers the virtues correctly in the real world.
And this flourishing, this virtuous life guided by practical wisdom, isn't a solo project. He calls us zoon politikon.
The political animal, yes. That's the crucial communal dimension. Flourishing requires developing and exercising virtue. Virtue requires habituation, which means practice and education. And all of that requires a stable community, the city-state.
So the state isn't just an optional add-on.
For Aristotle, it's natural and necessary. It exists to create the conditions for citizens to achieve eudaimonia, to provide justice, education, the framework for the good life. It's essential for realizing our communal telos.
And within that framework, he did rank different kinds of lives.
He did. He discussed three main types: the life of pleasure, the life of honor, political life, and the life of contemplation, the turia.
And he ranked contemplation highest.
Yes. The turia, pure thinking, understanding for its own sake, he saw as the highest activity. It's when the rational part of our soul engages in its purest activity, mirroring, in a way, the eternal contemplative activity of the unmoved mover. It's the most self-sufficient and complete form of flourishing.
It's just striking that the same person who reached these, quite abstract heights of logic and metaphysics and contemplation was also meticulously cataloging fish guts. His biology seems so foundational.
It absolutely is. Biology is central because it's where you see form and purpose in action. It's the empirical bedrock for his metaphysics. All the systematic observation, marine life, embryos developing wasn't just data collection. He was looking for the organizing principles, the telos in living things.
Which leads to that famous phrase, nature does nothing in vain.
That's the heart of his immanent teleology. It's a strong philosophical claim. Living systems show an inherent organization that you just can't reduce to mere mechanism or chance.
So the eye isn't just a random collection of cells that happens to detect light.
No. It is structured for the purpose of seeing. The heart exists because the body requires circulation to maintain its form and function. Form, function, purpose, they're all intrinsically linked, internally directed, co-emergent in living things.
This view of organisms as self-organizing systems, not just machines. It sounds very modern again.
It connects directly to modern systems biology, absolutely, which sees organisms as these complex networks, feedback loops, emergent properties, often finding simple mechanistic explanations incomplete. And this whole biological perspective directly shaped his theory of the soul, the psyche, in his work De Anima.
How did the soul fit into this biological, teleological picture? It wasn't some ghost in the machine.
Definitely not. For Aristotle, the soul psyche is not some separate ethereal thing temporarily residing in the body. It is the form of the living body.
So the organizing principle again.
Exactly. It's the body's functional architecture, its organizing principle, its actuality. It's what makes the living body alive and capable of performing its functions. When the body dies, the form, the soul in the sense, departs because the matter can no longer support those functions.
And he had different levels of soul.
Yes, a hierarchy based on function. The nutritive soul, plants' growth, reproduction, the sensitive soul, animals' perception, movement, and the rational soul, humans' reason, thought, which includes the lower functions too. The soul is the complete, holistic, informational pattern that defines a living thing and its capacities, its telos.
So if nature itself has this inherent structured purpose, and organisms are these wholes oriented towards their ends, then living things possess a kind of dignity.
A moral and epistemic dignity, yes. Understanding them means grasping their form and purpose. And the implication for modern design, especially AI or synthetic biology, is profound.
How so?
Designing truly autonomous, goal-directed systems might require us to think in these Aristotelian terms, embedding internal goals, defining the system's form in a way that orients it towards its purpose. A system that acts for the sake of its defined form might be fundamentally more robust and accountable than one just following external rules.
It's an incredible comprehensive system he built there in Athens. And obviously it didn't just stay there. Let's trace its journey, its afterlife through history.
It's been a real roller coaster. Canonization, rejection, revival, repeat. In the early medieval period, it was hugely influential in the Islamic world. Thinkers like Al-Farabi, Avicenna, Averroes, they absorbed Aristotle, often blending him with Neoplatonic ideas. He provided the logical and metaphysical toolkit for a lot of Islamic philosophy and science.
And then came the big synthesis in Christian Europe.
Thomas Aquinas. He performed maybe the most ambitious integration ever, using Aristotle's logic, ethics, and metaphysics as the rational scaffolding for scholastic theology.
Identifying the unmoved mover with the Christian God.
Yes, and grounding natural law theory in Aristotle's teleological view of human nature. Aquinas needed Aristotle's rational framework to bridge faith and reason.
But then the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, it seemed like a total rejection.
It was pretty brutal. The mechanistic turn Galileo, Descartes, Newton deliberately threw out formal and final causes. Matter became just inert stuff, res extensa for Descartes, pushed around by efficient causes according to mathematical laws.
The halos became a dirty word.
Completely. Associated with superstition, seen as blocking real scientific mechanistic explanation. Aristotle's whole philosophy of inherent essences looked like ancient history, an obstacle to progress.
It sounds like they might have overcorrected, maybe. Discarding the concept of purpose just because it wasn't easily measurable. But the sources say he kept coming back.
He always resurfaces when purely mechanistic or fragmented views hit their limits. The big 20th century revival zeroed in on exactly the pieces modernity had tried to bury.
Like who?
Well, Martin Heidegger went back to metaphysics to rethink the fundamental question of being, focusing on ousia and energia. Alasdair MacIntyre famously revived virtue ethics in After Virtue, arguing it was necessary to counter the incoherence of modern moral debates.
A return to character and purpose.
Yes. And Alfred North Whitehead, the process philosopher, saw in Aristotle's entelechy that idea of inherent self-realization, the seeds of a more dynamic relational view of the cosmos.
Which brings us right back to today and the urgent need to repurpose his tools for the digital age.
Absolutely. Look at the crisis in AI alignment. It's fundamentally an Aristotelian problem. We've found the limits of just using rule-based systems or simple utility functions.
We're building powerful agents without really understanding their why.
Exactly. Which has led to this renewed interest in phronesis practical wisdom. How can an AI develop context-sensitive judgment, not just follow brittle rules blindly? Can it learn to act appropriately in unforeseen situations?
We're essentially asking how to give it something like practical wisdom.
Yeah.
And every time we talk about aligning AI with human values, we're forced to define the machines tell us, its purpose.
We are. The tension is obvious. Data is matter, code is form, the developer is the efficient cause, but what is the final cause? If we can't define that ethical purpose rigorously, the system will likely optimize for something, but maybe not what we intended. It points towards needing to build in internal goals, a kind of functional digital soul that strives towards its defined purpose well.
Governed by some computational version of phronesis.
Ideally, yes. And the framework extends beyond ethics. His idea of form as an organizing principle resonates with information theory, where information shapes matter. His view of self-organizing systems connects to autopoiesis in biology, complexity theory.
Even theoretical physics, you mentioned.
Yes, even in highly speculative areas. The unmoved mover, as that ultimate non-efficient source of order, has parallels drawn to things like fundamental constants that make the universe structured and knowable, and that potentiality-actuality distinction.
Dynamis and energia.
It's been used to talk about quantum mechanics, the probabilistic wave function being potentiality until measurement actualizes a state. It just shows the enduring power of his basic conceptual toolkit. So the core takeaway from this deep dive, I think, is really clear. Aristotle doesn't just offer us fragmented ideas, a bit of logic here, some ethics there. He provides a truly comprehensive architecture of knowing. It's a call for reintegrating disciplines, values, our understanding of ourselves.
A unified view.
A unified view where truth is found in intelligible form. The good life is about cultivating reason and practical wisdom, phronesis. And nature itself is understood as striving towards fulfillment, telos. It's a dynamic, structured, purposeful model of reality.
It really seems clear that Aristotle gives us maybe not a detailed map for the 21st century, but definitely a powerful compass. Tools to orient ourselves in this incredibly complex age. Tools to think about reality, purpose, and excellence.
It's a callback to philosophy's deepest task, seeking the unity of things through rigorous thought and, importantly, moral seriousness.
Okay, so here's our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to take away, building right on that AI challenge we discussed. If Aristotle defines the soul as the form of a living body, its organizing principle in phronesis is practical wisdom that's learned through experience and habituation and context, what does that imply when we design AI systems? Systems capable of self-correction, adaptation, internal goal alignment. Does building an ethically aligned AI actually force us to define its form and final cause, its digital soul, if you like, with a kind of moral and intellectual rigor that perhaps we often fail to apply when defining our own human purpose and flourishing?
That's a deep question to ponder.
It's something to think about until the next deep dive.